everyone, Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. Today I will speak on the avatars of the dead. The reason why I want to speak on the avatars of the dead, this is more of a part two to the video I made entitled Spirituality is Dead. D.E.A.D. Right? Let me go into further emphasis as how I came to this conclusion and how it can be useful. What's up, D Strutted? We have an abundance of people who, quote unquote, let's just say pull from the angelic space or the heavenly realms, right? You can instantly find people, speaking whatever they want to speak about when it comes to angels, when it comes to deities. People are avatars of, Venus, of the sun, of the moon. You got people taking on names, names after angels and names after deities and divinity, right? There is an abundance of that information, right? Good morning, Raspberry Amber. Salute to you. There is an abundance of that information. What's up, Joshua? Salute to you, homie. Salute to you. What we must understand is us being at the center point of the universe means that we can tap into the angelic realm as well as Sheol, or what we call as hell. Most people, however, are not comfortable with doing that, even though we have the potential to do so. However, there are very few people who are actually adding on new layers of information or consciousness. What I mean is this: for the last 10 years, people have been saying the same thing, whether they're coming from a Hindu perspective or a spiritual perspective, or they're coming from a material perspective or the law of attraction, any of these things that have been dominant the last 10 years, 2012 and beyond, right? So essentially we have the same information on rotation, the same information. The reason being is because people are trying to preserve the tradition. They're not really trying to sway outside of the bounds of what they know or what they deem to be profitable. Let me make an emphasis there. What they deem to be profitable. It is, in their mind, profitable to keep things clean cut or mainstream. So that's why most people stays in that realm, because again, it's more about image. They don't want to have a certain image. They're not trying to project a certain reality. However, we understand once again that we can tap into the lower worlds as well as the higher worlds. The main difference between the two worlds is this: when you are tapping into Sheol, you are essentially tapping into the land of the dead, right? You are tapping into the energies of the not so angelic spirits, right? All of the people that we deem dark in this world, right? So you can say like the Hitlers of the world, right? The people that were just straight savage, okay? These are the type of people that you would essentially run into in Sheol, right? So of course the average person don't want anything to do with this frequency. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Glitch. Okay, I think it's good now. You see, just try to cut me off before I even got into it. You see what I mean? Just be very observative, right? You see it trying to shut me down before I even get into it. Because just pay attention. The reason why I speak about these things in the first place is to help people to be complete. It is not enough to tap into the heavenly worlds. It is not enough to know essentially the truth of God, right? It is not enough to be angelic or to be a so-called good person. That is not enough for your own salvation. That may make you good in the eyes of others. But when it comes to our own spirit, that doesn't mean anything. You can be the not kindest person or the meanest person on the planet. That is irrelevant to your spiritual journey. Our spiritual journey is not determined by essentially how we treat people or our physical acts. Even though the mainstream tells us this, the mainstream lets us know we have to be a certain way. We have to follow a certain tradition. We have to follow certain laws. We have to watch our thoughts, positive vibes only. We hear all of these things, right? But there's very few information about the other side because, again, fear. So somebody like me had to manifest to give balance to the universe. The only reason somebody like me exists is to give balance, right? Not to create war, but to give balance. Because again, there is an abundance of information about the heavenly worlds, the angels, and God, and all these things. It's not enough information about the other side, purposely, purposely. Because again, I'm not going to say people know from experience. I'll just speak from my experience because you see, I've been speaking about this stuff for at least 10 years at this point, right? I have not veered. I've been speaking about the darkness forever. Never veered, never switched sides, not doing any of this, right? Because, once again, I started my journey before all of this, prior to 2012, prior to all of this information being mainstream. So when I started my journey, it was a different set of information available to pull from that is no longer available, right? The information that I studied in the beginnings of my journey is just not even available. You can't even YouTube it anymore. There's videos that I watched on YouTube that are not even on YouTube anymore. Channels have been deleted. People have completely faded to black. There's just certain information that is not even available to look up. However, I have the memory of this because I was putting in the work. So I remember things that no longer exist. And this is what makes me or helps me to hold firm to, okay, maybe I am doing the right thing because I see what everybody else is doing. Let me take it a step further, right? Because we don't have to deal with this too much in terms of what other people are doing. People are going to do whatever they're drawn to do, right? So we don't have to put too much emphasis on what anyone else is doing. Let's speak about what we have to do in terms of if you want to be complete, if you want to really, anything you feel that you are missing, if you are a spiritual being and anything that you feel is missing, anything that you feel that you are not receiving from the angelic world or the godly dimensions, this is the reason why. Because when it comes to spiritual advancement, we cannot be one-sided. We cannot choose sides, right? We see this in gang warfare. We see this in gang culture. If you mess with a certain set, if you mess with a certain clan, you cannot mess with the other side or people will start looking at you weird, right? So people take these same traditional dynamics and apply it to the spiritual world. So they bring these human factors into the spiritual revelations. And this is what cuts people off. This is what blocks people. Because once again, they are taking earthly concepts and applying it to the spiritual world, and they do not correspond. What I mean by they do not correspond is this is why the worlds are separate. This is why you have heaven. This is why you have hell. There's a reason why the worlds are separate. They are not interconnected. The only thing that can interconnect these dimensions is the human experience, or the human on earth, or the God on earth, or the devil on earth, whatever you want to call it, right? Because again, we are the center point. So the only thing, or the only vessel that can bring forth the angelic and demonic worlds together harmoniously is the human being, or the God on earth, or the devil on earth, whatever you want to call yourself. This is the only way. We are the only vessels that can fuse these energies, right? This has already been known, right? Because if you study darker traditions, you already know this, right? The darker tradition doesn't tell you to shun anything positive. It just tells you to be complete. For example, you have the tree of life, but you also have the tree of death, right? It is very hard to understand the tree of death without first understanding the tree of life, without first understanding the Kabbalah, okay? So until you understand the Kabbalah, which is deemed the right-hand path, you're not even going to really comprehend the left-hand path because you haven't comprehended the other side, right? So before I even got into anything dark or demonic or the tree of death or the Klipofic worlds, I had to master the Kabbalistic worlds or the light side. I had to master life before I started to explore death. So this is the point. So again, I'm not trying to wedge differences. I'm just showing you how to be complete. You have to master the tree of life or the angelic world first. So that's why, for those who have been around long enough, you understand when I first made my manifestation on YouTube, I called myself Prince Raziel, right? Or Raziel. I did my own variation. So Raziel became Raziel. So my very first videos, 2013, I said, I am Prince Raziel. That was me connecting with the angelic side first, right? So just to give emphasis, the very first side I connected with first is Raziel, which is a angelic force, which is the secret of God. So that was the first title that I came under before I even took on the title of Amun Asheranu. That came later. And again, those who have been with me, you understand the evolution, right? The reason why that transfer of power happened, where I go from Prince Raziel to Amun Asheranu, that was me integrating with the darkness. So I was into the angelic world with Prince Raziel. But once I became the Amun Asheranu, then that was me integrating both sides together. So I'm like, okay, I can't just call myself the same thing, and I have advanced. So I had to change my name in order to embody both worlds. Now, if anybody knows anything about Amun Asheranu, we understand that this is a variation of the name Amun Ra, which is an Egyptian or Kemetic deity, right? Which was first Amun. So Amun became Amun Ra, which is the fusion of Amun and Ra, right? So Amun Ra is a fusion or a synchronicity of two energies. Amun is the hidden one. So the word Amun means the hidden one. Ra represents the light. So you have the hidden one fusing with the light, and that makes Amun Ra. Okay. Now, let me put this point to it. Had I just named myself Amun Ra, it wouldn't have been enough. Because when you type in Amun Ra, it's going to be a lot of information that come up about that Egyptian deity. So I could not take on that name because it was too mainstream, it was too popular, right? So I had to take on Amun Asheranu, because if you Google Amun Asheranu, I'm going to be the first thing that pop up. If you Google Amun Ra, I'm not going to be the first thing to pop up, and I would not have been the first thing to pop up if I ever took on that title. So I had the knowingness. I had to take on a title that I can actually embody, so that it becomes me. So you can essentially say I have become the Amun Asheranu because I'm the most popular thing associated with that particular name, right? I'm going to be the first thing to pop up. Now you may have articles about the deity under me, but I would be the first thing to pop up because again, this is just me knowing I can't just be the Asar. I can't just be the Amun. I can't just be the, let's just say, the Thoth or the Tahuti or the Sobek, right? Or the Ptah, right? I couldn't just be a name. I couldn't just take on a name that already exists without any type of variation that puts my emphasis on it, right? So I'm just giving you guys some history so you can understand where I'm coming from with the synchronicity of Sheol and the heavenly realms. So when I say the avatars of the dead, that means the dead is coming to you. That means the dead speaks to you. That means you can see the dead and you can integrate with the dead. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Like, it's been spirits that came to me. I'll just speak about my own personal experience. We don't even have to go to the book knowledge or the historical facts. I can speak about my own, path or journey. It's been beings that came to me, for example, like Elizabeth Taylor, right? When it comes to Elizabeth Taylor, I probably never watched a single one of her movies. I didn't know anything about her. This is before my time. So anybody who know about Elizabeth Taylor and Hollywood and her history, this is clearly way before me, right? So I didn't grow up knowing anything about this person to the point where when I heard Elizabeth Taylor, I had to research because I didn't know who she was. Or I'm like, okay, she may be somebody famous in Hollywood, but I didn't necessarily know the dynamics of why she would come to me. I'm like, what do I have to do with that? Why are you like the name? It's like, again, let me just. I'm not going to say this is going to happen to everybody, but I'm just speaking about my experience. Like when I hear spirits, it's like they're yelling at me. I hear like yelling, or it's like they're like knocking at a door. So like they just keeps repeating their names. They announce themselves, right? So it's like Elizabeth Teller, Elizabeth Teller. To the point where I start whatever I'm thinking or wherever my mind is, I have to stop what I'm doing to because it's like somebody banging on your door. So no matter what you're doing, you got to answer the door, or they're going to keep banging. So when the spirit comes to me, it's like they're banging at my door. So it's like, I don't care what you're doing. I need to tell you something. There's some information that needs to be revealed. The same thing happened to me with Liberace, right? Liberace, which again, this is a person I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about Liberace, but I kept hearing Liberace, 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 Liberace. Like, why? Once I researched who the man was, I understood. Once I researched Elizabeth Taylor, I understood. Right? So again, I'm saying this to say, and again, I'll go into more detail in just a second, but I'm just making the point of the spirits of the dead come to you. This was not me looking for these people because I didn't even know who these people were. I had no will to even look up these people because I did not know these people even existed. So these are people that I didn't even know existed until they made themselves known to me. Now, if we talk about deities or spirits, the spirit that came to me, and I told the story over and over again. The spirit that came to me was Asar, which is Osiris, right? So in that situation, I'm literally just minding my own business, and a voice utters out of my throat, like Asar. I said it out with my own mouth, with my own voice, but I didn't even know I'm like, what is Asar? So just imagine you just minding your business, then you just hear Asar, like something makes you speak. Something just captures you and speaks Asar and speaks his name. So what do I do? Because again, never heard about this before. What do? I do my Googles. I research Asar. What do I find out? Asar is the lord of the underworld, otherwise known as Osiris, right? However, the emphasis was the spirit identified itself as Asar. It did not identify itself as Osiris, because had it identified itself as Osiris, I probably would have recognized it because I had heard Osiris before. But I had never heard the word Asar before that incident. So I knew about Osiris, but I did not know the original name of Osiris was Asar, because Osiris is Greek. So when we hear Osiris, it is Greek. When we hear Isis, it is Greek. The real titles is Asar and Aset. That is the Kemetic tongue, right? So the spirit came to me in the Kemetic tongue, okay? It did not come to me in the Greek tongue. So when I looked that up and when I researched it, I knew that this had to be something deeper than just me making something up, right? Because if a spirit is announcing itself to me, it is saying its title, it is saying its name, then it obviously wants me to know who it is, right? And this is a difference because we hear a lot of people, right, hunted by demons, and they feel like they're cursed, and they got all this extracurricular spiritual activity going on in their lives, right? And like again, it's extra. So with me, it was announced, right? So I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel like it was something wrong, something that should not be happening. All I did was do my research, do my own due diligence to have an understanding of what is going on with me. Don't have nothing to do with anyone else. Why is this spirit, or why is this title, or why is this energy coming to me, and what difference does it make, right? Or what purpose does it serve? So all of these energies that I mentioned, whether it's Elizabeth Taylor, whether it's Liberace, whether it's Asar, all of these energies are dead. All of these energies are in Sheol. All of these energies are, you can say, in hell. Right? And again, I don't want to say that these beings are in hell like Liberace or Elizabeth Taylor. I'm not saying that they went to hell or heaven. I'm just saying these energies are dead. Right? So when it comes to okay, well, what is the purpose of all this? Like, what did Liberace reveal? What did Elizabeth Taylor reveal? What did Asar reveal? All of these revelations, I didn't have an understanding of till later on. I did not understand exactly what was going on at the time it was happening. Like I said, I had to do my own due diligence. I had to learn about Asar. I had to learn about Liberace. I had to learn about Elizabeth Taylor, right? And once I studied them, I had a better understanding as to why they would have came to me. When it comes to Liberace, for example, I am in Vegas, right? I am in the desert. So Liberace was one of the gods of the desert, okay? So in his time, he was, you can say, the top of the top, right? He influenced Elvis, basically his style of dress. Liberace essentially taught Elvis how to dress, right? So when we think about Elvis and the way he was well dressed and how memorable his styles are, all that came from Liberace. Because if you look at Liberace's style, you can say, okay, this is one of the best dressed people on the planet that has ever lived, right? Because if you look at his outfits, if you look at his stage performance, you're like, okay, this is one of the best that ever did it. When it comes to Vegas, so you can say he was one of the Vegas all-stars, like the Frank Sinatras and so on and so forth, right? He was one of the Vegas All-Stars. But again, I didn't know anything about this. Nobody told me about this. I didn't find this on the internet. I didn't read it in a book. I had no idea who this person was because, again, I haven't been in the desert that long. So I didn't know about the full history, right? The same thing with Elizabeth Taylor. We understand that I have traveled the lands of California, or specifically Los Angeles, for the purposes of understanding the occult, right? So it's just things like Hollywood land. See, all I knew about was Hollywood, like everyone else. I didn't know that Hollywood used to be called Hollywood land. And when you break down Hollywood land, that breaks down to a seven, which is the most spiritual number, which is a very, you can say, demonic or occult number. It's like the swamp. It's real swampy, and again, we don't have to get into that. However, when it comes to what we call the dead or the underworld, or again, all of these things are supposed to give us some type of what we call a barrier that we should not cross, right? Because again, we don't see too many people just speaking about the dead. I'm not saying there isn't anyone out there. There are a couple, but there are very few people who speak about the dead in terms of they are communicating with dead spirits. There are very few people, but it's not that people can't do it. It's just that people are not allowing themselves to tap into that world. It is not allowed. It is very possible, but again, who wants to communicate with the devil? Who wants to communicate with the Baphomet? Who wants to communicate with Sophia? Who wants to communicate with Lilith? So on and so forth, right? So most people don't want no parts. You know, Lilith is the queen of the jinn. So if you are afraid of jinn, you don't want no parts of Lilith, right? Who wants to speak to Pombagira? Pombagira is a vampire. If you're not into vampires, why would you, or the clip off? Why would you speak to Pombagira? And it goes on and on and on and on and on. But these are like the main deities that's always speaking to me, as if it's like I'm just in Sheol, right? It's like I'm always in Sheol. Not because I place my mind there. It's just based off my own bloodline. It's based off my DNA. I feel in my heart this is just a continuation of something that has always been. Meaning I don't feel like I'm intelligent or I'm spiritual because I just put in that much work and I'm somehow better than anyone else. I don't feel that at all. I feel this is a continuation of something that has always been occurring. I feel like I'm just tapping into what I've been doing, like everyone else, or anyone else who is spiritual. This is probably not your first time being spiritual. This is a continuation of past lifetimes and past reincarnations that are all being gathered up, and we have access to all these dimensions, right? So if you basically have 1,000 lives, you have 1,000 experiences to pull from, but most people are only stuck on their physical life, right? Most people are fucked up, right, based on what has occurred in their physical life. Whatever trauma that they have undergone in their life, they're still tripping off that, right? People be still mad at people for years and years, situations at 10 years, 20 years, people still being in their feelings. Like this human experience has people so locked into what we call Sheol that they cannot go outside of the bounds of their physical experience. This is why most people can't go beyond their physical experience. This is why most people can't astral travel. This is why most people can't speak to the spirits of the dead, because they're too weighed down by their own personal life, right? Not knowing that they got 1,000 other lives to pull from that they can extract universal wisdom from. But how can you do that and you still mad at your partner? You're still mad at your parents. You're still mad at your friends. You're still mad at the world. You're still mad at the country. It's just not going to happen, because the energy is not going to flow smoothly if you have a hatred towards it. If you have a hatred towards the world, why would the world open up to you? If you have a hatred towards Satan or the devil or Sheol, why would they open up to you? And most people feel like they don't want no parts to do with it anyway, not knowing that these spirits are older than the angels that we deal with anyway. So all of this angelic spirit, all of this niceness, all of this mainstream whitewash religion and tradition and spirituality, All this darker stuff is older than that. The darker elements are just the original culture of this planet. The original culture of this planet is in Sheol, is in the darkness. Why? Because religion has made sure that. Religion has made sure that we don't remember what was actually going on, and they replaced it with the Bible and all these religious books, right? So we're more tapped into the Bible and the Quran and the Torah and all these religious books than the actual history of the planet. We have more emphasis. We have all these scholars that know about the Bible, they know about the Quran, they know about the Torah, but in terms of history, real history, why isn't it too many people that know about what actually happened? We're still talking about this whitewash history that is clearly fake. We're still talking about a fake history, again, as if it's real. Why? Obviously, there's a reason for that. And this is what I mean. There would be no reason to tell people to stay away from the dark side if it was truly dark. Let me explain to you what that means. There would be no God versus devil and good versus bad if it was actually bad, or because again, let me explain. If people want you to stay away from something, they're not gonna tell you what it is. What do I mean? Let me now go to Devil's Gate, right? Because I've been to Devil's Gate. I spoke about Devil's Gate and all that in Los Angeles, in Altadena, California, Devil's Gate, right? So I had to go to Devil's Gate. Why? Because I want to know. I wanted to see, am I going to feel some demonic presence? Am I going to, feel some angelic presence? I didn't know. I see all the stories, or I hear all the stories about in everyone else, children disappearing from that place, demonic rituals, they're summoning the moon child. Again, all of this thelemic history that I don't need to go into. You can do that on your own time. But I was in California or Los Angeles. I didn't learn about Devil's Gate till I moved to the desert. So the whole time I'm in Los Angeles, living my life, trying to do what I need to do, I knew nothing of Devil's Gate. It was never spoken about. It was silent. It wasn't until I started doing heavy research that I even knew that existed. So I had to move away from California to even know that there's a Devil Gate. So I had to go back to California to see what was up, right? And again, I had documented all this. All this was previous documented. I'm just reiterating this to make this point. So once I actually went and I had my actual experience, because I wanted to communicate with the devil. I'm like, all right, well, where would the devil be? Well, the devil should be at Devil's Gate, right? Why would you call the Devil's Gate the gate to hell, right? According to Aleister Crowley, Devil's Gate was one of the 7 portals to hell, right? That's what gave me, well, okay, I need to go see what's up with this. Is it real, or is it just some shit that's made up? Oh, this is a portal to hell. Is that something that they're just saying, or is it real? So I had to discover it for myself, because I'm not going to take nobody else's word for it. I need to see what is going on when I see, or when I explore. So when I went, it's not easy to talk about it. Honestly, it's really not easy to talk about it, because it was real. It was one of the most realest experiences I ever had in terms of spiritual experiences. Why? Because what was revealed to me when I was there asking the question, because I'm like, all right, let me communicate with the devil. You should be here, so let's have a conversation. Right? Why not? I want to see what would be spoken to me. I'm not going to take nobody else. I don't care what was spoken to someone else. What is going to be spoken to me, right? So when I had the communication, which was completely shocking, the only thing that was revealed to me was, if there was ever a devil, if there was ever something evil or something demonic, it would be me, right? So this is what the Spirit is telling me. All right, well, this so-called devil that you've been looking for, that you traveled all this way for, that you think you're going to find, no, is you. Look into your own self. All this Devil Gate, all this extra shit that people putting on top of it, oh, this is an area or location of bad luck. Nah. It is you. All right? Not necessarily you as in human beings. I'm not going to not like human beings or the devil, no. Let's point to me. Like, no, it's you. Like, why would you be here if you wasn't that? Why would you be here? No one else is here. Why would you be at Devil's Gate where no one else is around? It's 3 a.m. in the morning. All right, I got a trespass, so I got to break the law to even go to this place. It's private. It's privately owned, so it's not available to the public. So I'm putting my whole freedom on the line just to get a communication, which is what I feel is worth it. It may not be worth it to anyone else, but it was worth it to me at the time. So what did I pull from all that? Because I'm going through all of this just to be told that it's me. Well, it's actually you. Not because you're doing something evil, not because you're doing something demonic. It's because the whole idea of what we think the devil is completely misconstrued, right? So this is why I had to go through the process of like, okay, maybe the devil isn't what I think it is. That's what I started to research. Okay, there's three variations. There's three variations. You have what is called the devil, you have what is called Lucifer, and you have what is called Satan. Devil, Lucifer, and Satan are not the same thing. They have completely different histories. These are completely different deities. Because before that point, I was conflating all that together like most people. Most people, when you say those three things, this is all the same energy, right? They conflate it all together, which is, I was doing the same thing prior to that experience. So after that experience, I had to research the individual histories to see that okay, they're actually, these words were not did not go into the dictionary at the same time. Like Satan, I believe, was entered into the dictionary in the 1200s. Not the devil was in a whole another century, and Lucifer, like these words was entered into the lexicon, and like there was hundreds of years of difference between these words, right? So I think, yeah, like the devil man came, and like Satan is the 12th century, then devil is 13th. Like this is, none of these words were compiled at the same time. So they have a complete original history that's not together. It is a separate history. So this is essentially how I began to study the darkness separately, right? So I studied the paths separately. So I studied the satanic path, I studied the Luciferian path, and I studied the left hand path, right? Left hand path, Satanism, Luciferianism. They all are not the same thing. Again, in my mind, it was until that experience, until I started to gather deeper information, which brings us back to the original point. Sorry about that, which brings us back to the original point. I would have never known any of this if I didn't listen to my own calling, my own soul force, right? When the spirits came to me, I had to listen. When a SAR came to me, I had to listen, right? When it was time for me to change my title in order to represent where I am in my spiritual path, I had to make that change. So I had to do all of these things in order to get to where I am now, where I understand both worlds. So even though I may speak about the darkness a lot more, it's only because this is more unknown. I can speak about the light stuff way more intricately than most people, but I choose not to deal with that because there's already too many people in that world. Right? I'm going to be a small, I'm not even going to make a factor. I'm not going to make a dent in that world if I'm just talking about angels and all that. But if I'm talking about demons and jinns and all this satanic worship and Luciferianism, then I can maybe get a little bit more ears. So that's why I lean more towards the left-handedness, because again, it's a lot easier for me to speak about these things, and there's just not too many people speaking about it. So it's like it's a whole open sea where I'm just swimming, doing whatever I need to do. So again, I just wanted to use my own personal experience instead of a historical knowledge or a book knowledge or knowledge that's coming from somewhere else. Just letting it be known we don't need to do any of that, right? I don't need to lean on anybody else's experience when I have my own because I made the sacrifice. Now, had I never made the sacrifice to go to Devil's Gate, I wouldn't have had the experience. I wouldn't have been able to elevate. So I had to make the sacrifice, take out time, money, resources, energy. I had to take out all these things to get these answers, right? Again, I'm from the East or the Midwest. I'm from Detroit, so I had to go from Detroit to Los Angeles. Then I had to go from Los Angeles to New York to get that alien information. So when it comes to aliens, oh, I got that from New York. So when it comes to the demonic world, that was Los Angeles. That's again, the root chakra of the planet is in California. So when I'm in California, now I'm learning about Hollywoodland. I'm learning about the darkness. I'm learning about the Lima. I'm learning about Aleister Crowley. I'm learning about the history of California. I'm learning about the Church of Scientology. I'm learning about L. Ron Hubbard. I'm learning about all this West Coast. When I go to the East, now I have to learn a different history. And again, that's more about aliens, right? And again, I don't have to get into all that. But there's the differences. I'm like, okay, like New York is in 5D, while uh, California is in 4D. 4D is the subterranean planes, and 5D is like the planes of the yogis, right? And again, I know this. I'm just kind of just speaking out ideas and not really going too deep into it, because again, I'll be on this live stream forever, but I don't have that much energy, so I'll leave it. I'll leave it there. I'll shout everybody out. We get up out of there. We get up out of here. Let's see. So what's up, Mary? Peace, Miss Libra. Peace, Sounds by Luna. What's up, Tech Mans? What's up, Ty? Peace, 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 peace. So again, if anybody has any questions, ask them now, and we'll check out. We'll check out. Because again, the main purpose of this video is just to I'm just giving my own example of the darkness. So when you look me in my eyes, that's why I'm looking at the camera. So you see, when I'm looking at the camera, I'm not looking at myself, right? I'm not looking at myself. I'm not looking at the screen. You see, I'm looking at the screen now. If I was just looking at myself, looking in my own eyes, it would be like this. But you see, I'm looking directly into the camera because I want you guys to feel the energy coming from my eyes, just to know that this is genuine, right? So that's why I look, right? I don't need to stare at myself. I know I got this hot, sweaty face, right? Face is all sweaty. I don't need to look at myself. Where you find the history for the cities and towns? It ain't coming from books. It's coming from direct revelations. Like, for example, I knew about Hollywood land because the history is there in Hollywood. So I had to go to Hollywood. Like, there was no books that taught me about Hollywood land. I only know about Hollywood land because they have information in Hollywood. You have to go to the actual location, and they have like the history of Hollywood. So you had to go to Hollywood, and they have the history there. So it didn't come from a book. You just had to go to Hollywood, and they have the history documented. So the history is documented, so you have to actually go to the cities. Again, so that's why I had to go to all of these cities and get the actual information that's documented, that it never even came out of books. I don't even know if there is a book that speaks about Hollywood land. I don't even know if that book exists. I only know because I traveled the lands. That's the only way I know. All right. I found you years ago, but I dropped you because you got angry at me. But oh my God, I got angry at you. I don't even know what you're talking about. The Florida woman. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, did I block you? Again, I have no idea. Especially if you're talking about something from years ago, I have no idea. I couldn't have blocked you if you're here. So I probably didn't block you, but I don't know. I have no idea. The dark path was how I found enlightenment. Absolutely, because we are dark souls. It's just that simple. When you are a dark soul, again, let me tell you this experience. Because when I say that, I don't want people to think that I'm just saying that. There's a purpose of why I say that. Because of an experience. So let me tell you about a dream I had, all right? I'm not going to go into actual detail. But essentially, I connected with a spirit. And I asked the spirit, right? I'm like, why am I the way I am, right? So I had a dream, right? I had a dream. I was working with a sigil. I was working with sigil magic. Again, I'm doing all this stuff that I'm always talking about, right? So I project into the dream world. So I'm told to go into a back room. Go into that back room. Somebody's waiting on you. Like, who the fuck is waiting on me? Somebody's waiting on. I go into that back room. I see a deity. It's hard to explain this stuff because it's in the dream world. You know, when we're dreaming, we're on DMT. We're going through all this psychoactive stuff, right? So it's hard to pinpoint things. So essentially, it's like a figure, right? It's a figure with like a clown face. Basically, for anybody who saw the Saw movie, the horror movie Saw, like Billy, the little Billy, the clown Billy, it was a female version of that. So I saw the female version of Billy, right? So what I did, I sat in her lap. She was like, come, child, like, sit in my lap. I sat in the lap of this huge, again, just think about a normal room, a normal bedroom. And this entity takes up like the whole space. It's ridiculous. Like, sit your ass down. So I sat down in the lap of this feminine dark spirit. And it was the most relaxing feeling I probably ever felt in my life, other than like being in the arms of your mother. or sitting on your mother's thigh, sitting on the throne of your mother is like I felt like immense relaxation when I sat at I sat in her lap. Cause I'm like I'm little, like I don't like fuck. I completely took my ego out of it. That's why I'm asking questions. I'm like, oh, I didn't like I'm big and high. Well, fuck all that. I surrendered completely. I surrendered to the cosmic feminine force. I surrendered. So I asked the question because I felt comfortable. It's like the energy made me feel comfortable enough to ask this question. So the question I asked, because again, I feel like she was just helping me to feel comfortable. Like, I know you want to ask me something. Ask your goddamn question, right? Basically, ask your fucking question. I know is again, you don't really talk, you don't really talk to spirits like that. You probably never had experience like this, but ask your goddamn question. All right. So the question I asked was, why am I the way I am? Right? Because I want to know. I'm like, I can formulate my own thoughts, but what is it? What's really going on? I need to hear it from an external source. And the answer that I received was, it is because you are an older soul. This is the exact words. It is because you are an older soul. That's all that was said. I'm like, older soul. What does that mean? All right. Again, again, as it's happening, it wasn't clicking. I had to, go through my own travels to understand what all this means. And again, this is what I'm speaking about now. The dark side or the left-hand path or the clip-offic world or the tree of death. This is basically what they're located. Oh, you are an older soul. That means you predate this light world. You predate this experience. That means you come from the clip-off. That means you come from hell. That means you are from Sheol. So that's like, oh, you are hell-born. You are born out of hell. You are born from the sacred flames. Okay. All right. No problem. The last thing I asked the deity, right? Because I wanted to know. Again, this is what I do. I'm like, how do I know you're real? I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna just take your word for it. How do I know you're real? I'm like, help me to remember this experience. So this is the last thing I said. I'm like, help me to not forget. Because I know this is a dream. So I was aware that I was dreaming. So I'm asking the spirit, help me to not forget this when I wake up so that I remember this. To the point where, so now that I'm telling it now, the only reason this is locked in my mind is because I asked to remember. I said, help me remember this. Help me to remember this so that I don't wake up and this is just something I don't know. So the spirit, she put her mouth on my fingertip, right? So, just put her mouth on my finger. Full body orgasm. I had a full body orgasm. This pleasure just shot from every neuron in my body. Just woke up. It was so pleasurable, I fucking woke up. Just amazed, right? So the only reason I remember this is because that's what woke me up. Because I asked, I'm like, if you are real, I'm like, how do I know that this is not an illusion of my mind, right? So I'm asking these hard questions because I'm not just taking a spirit. Okay, you're a spirit. You're not above me. I'm like, I need to know if you're real. Is this just a projection lying to me? So I wanted to know. So after that, I'm like, all right, shit. Because that had never happened to me prior. Prior to that, that had never happened to me prior to that experience. So I'm like, okay, this is clearly real. And I still remember to this day. I'm like, all right, that ain't something that just, oh, that was a nice dream. Like, nah. Again, I had to do my own research. I had to like, okay, what does it mean to be an older soul? So that's where I started to say dark souls. So when I say dark souls, that's where that came from. It came from the experience of me being told that I was an older soul and me not understanding what that meant. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take your word for it. What does that mean? And again, that's what it means to be hell-born. That's what it means to be from the clip-off, because the clip-off, once again, is the first creation from the demiurge. For those who may not know, the clip-off just represents the first creation, which was a mistake. So the first creation of God, the so-called God, was a mistake, and it was called the clip-off. Then the second creation was called the Kabbalah or the Tree of Life. So this is the world we are in now. So we are in the second creation. The first creation was a mistake, and this is where all the demons and the jinn go, right? Then the second world was the heavenly worlds, right? So you can say the demonic world was created before the heavenly worlds, according to the Gnostic perspective. So I'm like, oh, that actually makes perfect sense. I'm like, all right, so you are older, so that means you predate this creation. That's basically what she's saying. You predate this creation. You come from the first creation, which I'm sure anybody who resonates with me comes from this same place. So I'm not saying it as if I'm above or I'm the only one. No, anyone who resonates, obviously you come from the same destination or the same foundation and seeking the same destination, which is a return to the sacred flames, which we call hell, right? Which brings me to this last point, because we're supposed to be so afraid of hell. Like, if you do all these dark deeds, you're going to suffer in hell for eternity. And this is the religious perspective. Like, okay, nobody wants to burn in hell. But again, it all depends on where you are studying, because hell is temporary. It all depends. This is what I'm saying. It is certain traditions that look at hell as a temporary passing place. We go through hell, not to hell. We go through hell to cleanse ourselves so that we can make our way to the center point of the universe. Hell is not necessarily a destination. That is religion doing that. Like, hell is the ultimate destination. Prior to religion, hell was the pathway towards something greater. So we go through hell to cleanse ourselves, to go into higher worlds of greater dimensions, not as a permanent destination to suffer because of these little 100 years. Out of 1,000 reincarnations, we're going to suffer forever for these 100 years that we're here because we wasn't perfect. That doesn't make any sense. So that is not necessarily what it means. Like, okay, you're going to do something bad, and now you're going to be in heaven forever over 100 years. So for what you do over 100 years, you're going to suffer forever. That doesn't make any sense, at least to me. However, once I started to dig deeper, okay, hell is a temporary place, not a permanent place. So heaven must be the same way. Well, heaven is a temporary passing point to something greater. So heaven is not even the greatest place, because what we consider heaven is not even heaven. That's why heaven, just like hell, has many levels. Just like there's 9 levels of hell, you can say, like, there are 7 heavens. Like, there are 7 heavens, 9 hells. There's levels to this shit, right? So again, I've been talking way too long. Again, my phone is dying at this point. Again, I wasn't even trying to speak all this, but I just wanted to give my personal experience so that everybody understands where I'm coming from. Because again, I could have used this book knowledge, I could have used this spiritual shit. Here's my personal experience, and you take what you take from it. And if you gain from it, absolutely. But if you don't, it is what it is, right? But all I can do is convey my personal experience, because this is what makes it real to me, right? Can you speak on the walk-ins? What do you mean by walk-in? Like a spirit walking into your body? What exactly do you mean by walk-in? Okay. Again, I only got like 10%, so I'm just doing this as quick as I can. Sorry about that. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. So I have this phone case on, so when I put the mic in, it's not as sturdy as it is without the case. So the mic, there we go. Sorry about that. It's just a mic, because again, I got this protective barrier so it doesn't snap in completely like it should. Why don't people like you when you get in tune with the dark forces? Because your reality shatters their illusion. Your reality shatters their illusion. Because all this light shit, that's an illusion. Light produces illusions, right? The only thing pure is the darkness. So when you come in the name of the darkness, you are able to cleanse or purify all the things that are light, all of the things that are illusionary, all of the things that are Maya. So the dark purifies Maya, because they cannot get into your mind. They cannot control you. What purpose do you serve if they can't get into your mind and control you? You don't serve a purpose to the light if they can't control you, right? So, of course, they're not going to like you, because they can't penetrate your heart and they can't penetrate your mind. So you actually become an enemy to them, because they can't penetrate you. They can't convert you. So you become the enemy. It doesn't matter, I was acting like an idiot, and I know it. I'm glad you came up in my feed. Well, I apologize for blocking you. Again, I don't remember. Because again, I'm not trying to block anybody because they have an opinion. So whatever that was, I apologize for it. Whatever that was. Because again, just because somebody has a different opinion don't mean that I'm just going to block you. So whatever it was, I offer my apologies. There's a lot going on here. I think Elizabeth Taylor had violet eyes. Maybe she did. Again, I didn't know nothing about Elizabeth Taylor till she came to me. Right? I had no idea about her history. But I think she had the largest jewelry collection, or the most expensive jewelry collection. So that's what I learned about her. So she either had the most vast collection or the most expensive jewelry collection. I don't know which one. But I'm like, okay, so that means she is a diamond maker. She is a maker of diamonds. She is a diamond queen, right? So there's a certain energy that is the diamond queen, right? So when they say like women like diamonds, that's a whole spirit in and of itself. That's a whole spirit in and of itself. Does dark also equate to feminine? Yes, yes. The darkness is the feminine world. That's why the goddess came to me. So when I talked about that experience, it was a woman that came to me. It was the goddess that came to me. It wasn't no dude. It wasn't no dick and balls. No, it was straight water. That's why I surrendered to the feminine. That's why I surrendered to the feminine. That's like the patriarchy, all that masculine shit. I don't want nothing to do with that. That's why the world is the way it is now, off of patriarchy. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm all about the matriarchy. I'm all about the divine mother. I'm all about the feminine. That's what it's always been about for me. That's why I'm in the dark side. The dark side just means you honor the feminine, the original great cosmic mother, which is Sophia, right? Sophia, if we want to give it a title, or Baphomet. Sophia/Baphomet, right? That's the emphasis. So that's what I've always been on since day one. Since day one, because that was the energy that showed me more than what I knew. Because again, I was religious like everybody else prior to this. Again, I went through my Islamic path. I was a Muslim at 15. I came up from a Catholic background, so I went from Catholic to Muslim. Then I was started to studying like the Jewish tradition, the Kabbalah, and all that. So I've been through all these schools, and I ended up with the Great Mother. It just is what it is, right? So all of the thugs, all of the La Setesima Muerte, the goddess of death, all that's the Great Mother. All that is the Great Mother. All right. So y'all already know. So shout out to the mothers. Shout out to the queens. Peace, God, harmony. Harmony 9, what's up? So salute to the goddess, because she's the one with the answers. The patriarchy is over with. That's over with. That's over with. And if you don't believe me, just look at the world, right? Look at what's going on in the world. I don't even have to speak about what's going on. So if the first creation was a mistake, does that make the first entities a mistake? Yes. A mistake as in demonic, as in the underworld, as in the Sheol, as in the jinn, as in the demons, yes. Which what most people consider a mistake. So most people consider demons and ghouls and goblins a mistake. And that's why they look so ugly and forbidden looking. All that's cap in today's terms. All that's cap in today's terms, right? Sheol is earth. It's a temporary prison and we choose to be here. Enjoy this live stream. Well, I wouldn't say Sheol is the earth. I would say Sheol is the inner earth. I wouldn't say the Sheol is the surface of the earth. Sheol is more so the subterranean planes, the infernal planes, all right? And yes, we do choose to be here because we are going through a transformation or an evolution towards a more greater reality, right? That is beyond the physical plane. So yes, this is temporary, which is why we don't really put too much emphasis on Maya. We put more emphasis on the spirit, and we bring spiritual forces into the Maya to transform Maya into the heaven on earth, right? Heaven and hell is just states of mind. Like we can say a person is in a hellish place, but again, hell has many levels. So even if we consider bad people to be in hell, that don't necessarily mean that they are in the kingdom of hell. Just because some people are in heaven does not mean they are in the kingdom of heaven. There's a difference between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of hell and hell. Again, but that's a whole nother video. So just because a person is bad or good doesn't mean that they're actually in the kingdom. It does not mean that. So otherwise, there wouldn't be no purpose of reincarnation. But we see reincarnation as something that the Buddha has been speaking about since day one. All right? So we get up out of here. 93, salute.